Welcome to the Power Book of Podcasts. Unlock your potential with powerful book summaries that inspire personal growth and broaden your understanding of the world. Each week, we explore life-changing ideas, from leadership to mindset strategies to keys for happiness and success. Learn actionable insights to apply in your daily life. Join our growing community of thinkers and seekers. Like, comment, and hit that subscribe button now. It's time to supercharge your mind with the Power Book of Podcasts.
Okay, so get this. We're diving deep today into spy secrets that can save your life.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, it's by Jason Hanson, a former CIA officer.
Okay.
It's packed with techniques he used in the field.
Right.
But get this adapted for everyday situations.
So like what?
We're talking home security, travel, even how to spot a liar.
Wow. Okay, I'm intrigued already.
Our mission, should we choose to accept it,
I think we should.
is to extract the most actionable tips and intriguing insights that you can use right now to be safer.
That's a great mission.
I think so too.
You know, one thing that really stood out to me is that Hanson emphasizes building this foundation of awareness,
Okay,
and he calls it situational awareness.
I've heard of that.
Right. And he even uses the system called the Cooper color codes.
Right. I know those are used by law enforcement and the military,
Mm-hmm.
but how can we actually use those in our daily lives?
Well, think about it this way.
Sorry.
Condition white is basically like sleepwalking through life,
Okay.
totally oblivious to your surroundings.
Yeah, that's not good.
Definitely not ideal for spotting those potential threats. So Hanson wants us to be in condition yellow, which is a state of relaxed alertness.
Okay.
So you're taking in information,
Yeah.
observing people, your environment,
Mm-hmm.
but you're not on high alert, ready to bolt at any second.
Right. So it's like that sweet spot between being totally oblivious and being paranoid.
Exactly. And, to illustrate this, Hanson even recounts a story about almost being mugged.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was with his wife.
Oh, no.
And he noticed the would-be mugger didn't fit the usual baseline of the area.
So, what do you mean by baseline?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
Imagine you're in like a coffee shop every day.
Okay.
You start to know the usual sounds, the flow of customers, maybe even the barista's routine, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That becomes your baseline. If one day someone's lurking by the back door or behaving erratically,
Uh-oh.
that disrupts your baseline.
I see.
So that's when those internal alarm bells should start ringing.
Okay, so it's about recognizing subtle changes that might indicate something's amiss.
Exactly.
But, wouldn't we just chalk that up to like a weird day and move on?
That's where normalcy bias comes in,
Okay.
which is a fancy way of saying we tend to downplay potential threats
Right.
because we want to believe that everything's fine.
Yeah, I get that.
It's that voice in our head saying, oh, that's probably nothing.
Yeah, for sure.
But Hanson argues that acknowledging those gut feelings and investigating further,
Yeah.
that's key to avoiding potentially dangerous situations.
This reminds me of stories of disaster survivors.
Oh, really?
Yeah, a lot of them talk about sensing that something was off even before, like, the disaster happens,
Yay.
like a plane crash or something.
And Hanson even uses examples.
Oh, does he?
Like the Boston Marathon bombing
Oh, wow.
and the Nairobi Mall attack,
Okay.
where survivors reported a feeling of unease before the chaos erupted.
Whoa.
They noticed deviations from the baseline,
Yeah.
but normalcy bias kept them from acting on those feelings.
It's chilling to think how easily our brains can trick us into dismissing potential threats.
It really is.
So how do we, overcome that?
Well, it's about consciously training our minds to be more observant.
Okay.
So we need to actively look for those subtle cues and question our assumptions. So Hanson encourages us to play a little game with ourselves,
Okay.
constantly asking, what's out of place here? What doesn't feel right?
That's a really interesting way to frame it.
Right.
It's like becoming a detective in our own lives.
Exactly.
Now that we're talking about home security,
Yeah.
I have to admit, I've always wondered if those simple tips you see online actually work.
Hanson actually has some surprisingly practical advice.
Oh, does he?
And he starts by urging us to case our own houses.
Wait, are we talking about literally walking around the house like a criminal,
You got it?
trying to find ways to break in?
Mm-hmm. He actually had his own wake-up call.
Really?
He came home to what he thought was an intruder in the middle of the night.
Oh my gosh.
It turned out to be like a fallen air mattress,
All right.
but it made him realize how vulnerable his home was.
That's a little unsettling.
It is.
But it makes sense.
Right.
By thinking like a burglar, we can identify weak points that we might have overlooked.
Exactly.
So what kind of vulnerabilities are we talking about?
Well, he really stresses that garages are often the weakest link.
Oh, really?
Yeah, people leave the door between the garage and the house unlocked.
Oh, yeah.
Or they forget to secure the main garage door.
It happens.
It's an easy entry point for someone looking to get in quickly and quietly.
And I bet people underestimate how important it is to secure deliveries, too.
Totally.
We've all seen packages sitting unattended on doorsteps.
It's like a welcome mat for thieves.
Yeah.
So Hanson recommends being proactive,
Okay.
requiring signatures for deliveries, using package lockers, or even having them sent to a secure location.
Okay.
It's a simple step that can make a big difference.
This is all great stuff. I'm already feeling a little more empowered just thinking about these simple changes I can make.
That's the beauty of Hanson's approach.
Yeah.
He takes these seemingly complex spy techniques and makes them accessible and applicable to our daily lives.
So we've talked about awareness and home security.
Right.
What about feeling safe when we're out and about, especially when we travel?
Ooh, travel. Hanson dedicates a whole section to travel safety.
Okay.
And it's full of valuable insights.
Like what?
Well, it starts with those potentially scary moments on an airplane.
Ooh. Air travel can be nerve-wracking enough without thinking about emergencies.
I know.
Yeah.
But knowledge can calm those nerves.
Oh.
Hanson emphasizes what's called the 90-second rule, which states that you typically have about 90 seconds to evacuate a plane after a crash before it could be engulfed in flames.
Wow. Knowing that time frame really puts things into perspective.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. So are there specific things that we should be doing during a flight to be prepared?
Absolutely. Always count the rows to the nearest exit.
Okay.
And familiarize yourself with the safety card. Because in those crucial 90 seconds, you won't have time to figure out how to open the emergency exit.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
What about when we're choosing a hotel? Any insider tips for picking a safer room?
Ooh, good question.
Yeah.
Hanson recommends staying between the 3rd and 6th floors.
Okay.
Because criminals often target the first 2 floors.
Why is that?
Well, they offer easier access and escape routes.
Ah, okay.
Plus, fire truck ladders can typically reach up to the 6th floor.
Right.
Giving you a better chance of rescue in case of a fire.
This is all so practical and easy to remember.
It is.
I feel like I'm already upgrading my travel safety routine.
That's the goal. Hanson wants to equip us with simple, actionable strategies that can make a real difference in our lives.
Speaking of feeling safe,
Yeah.
what about those moments when you think you might be followed?
Ooh.
It sounds like something straight out of a movie.
You'd be surprised how common it is.
Is it really?
Hanson breaks down the reasons why someone might follow you.
Okay.
From a disgruntled ex to a criminal scoping out potential targets.
Okay.
But the key takeaway is to trust your gut.
Okay, but how do we actually know if someone is following us?
Well, Hanson suggests some simple tests.
Like what?
Like suddenly changing your pace.
Okay.
Making unexpected turns. Even ducking into a store and then immediately exiting.
Okay.
To see if the person follows.
Those are great ideas. I'm already imagining myself trying those out.
Right.
But what happens if you confirm your suspicions? What's the best course of action?
The golden rule is to stay public.
Okay.
So avoid going home or leading them to a secluded spot.
Right.
Instead, head for a crowded area.
Okay.
Call the police. And if possible, try to memorize details about the person or their vehicle.
So it's all about staying calm, collected, and taking action to remove yourself from the situation. Knowledge is power, and knowing what to do in these situations can make all the difference.
It really can.
This is all fascinating.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Oh, no.
I'm starting to realize that staying safe requires constant vigilance and awareness.
You're right. It's not about living in fear, but about developing a heightened sense of awareness and understanding the tactics people use to exploit vulnerabilities.
You know what?
Right.
Hanson has a whole section on social engineering.
He does.
Which is exactly about that.
It is.
Okay, that sounds intriguing. Let's dive into that next.
Okay.
I'm ready to learn how to spot those subtle manipulation tactics and protect myself from those who might try to take advantage.
I think you'll find this particularly interesting.
Really?
Especially Hanson's anecdote about his girlfriend's father.
Oh, right. Remind me what happened again.
Okay, so...
It had something to do with the father suspecting Hanson of being an FBI agent.
No. Exactly. And it all started with Hanson's own social engineering skills.
Oh.
Yeah, which he unknowingly used during a dinner party at his girlfriend's parents' house.
Oh, no.
He was subtly trying to figure out the father's background.
Okay.
Asking questions that might reveal any illegal activities.
Oh.
But instead of easing his suspicions, Hanson's clever questioning had the opposite effect.
So his attempt to gather information information backfired spectacularly.
You could say that. Yeah, his girlfriend later called panicking because her dad was convinced Hanson was an undercover FBI agent.
Oh my God.
Sent to investigate him.
Well, that's hilarious.
It is funny.
But it also highlights how easily social engineering tactics can be misinterpreted.
Right.
Even when they're not being used maliciously.
Exactly. It underscores the importance of being aware of these tactics.
Yeah.
Both to protect ourselves from manipulation and to avoid accidentally raising red flags ourselves.
So let's break down some common social engineering techniques.
Ready?
What should we be on the lookout for?
Well, one of the most prevalent is something called quid pro quo.
Quid pro quo.
Which basically means something for something.
Okay.
So it's about creating a sense of obligation, like doing someone a favor,
right,
with the expectation that they'll reciprocate.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely encountered that before.
Yeah.
It's like when someone buys you an expensive gift
and
then expects you to do something for them in return.
Exactly. Hanson even uses the classic example of a guy who takes a woman out to a fancy dinner and then expects something in return.
Oh, yeah.
It's a subtle form of manipulation that can be difficult to recognize.
Yeah, especially if you're not aware of it.
Right.
So how do we protect ourselves from falling prey to quid pro quo?
Well, it's about setting boundaries.
Okay.
And recognizing when someone is trying to manipulate you into feeling obligated. So if someone does you a favor that feels a little too generous or out of the blue, be wary of any requests they might have later on.
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the moment and agree to something you'll regret later.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some other social engineering tricks we should be aware of?
Yeah, what else is there?
Another common one is what Hanson calls acting like you belong.
Acting like you belong.
It's about using confidence and appearances to gain access or information that you wouldn't normally have.
So it's like those movie scenes where someone puts on a uniform or flashes a fake badge to get past security.
Precisely, it plays on our tendency to trust authority figures or people who just seem to know what they're doing.
Right.
Remember that film, Catch Me If You Can?
Oh, yeah.
Where Leonardo DiCaprio's character impersonates all sorts of professionals.
Yeah.
He was a master of acting like he belonged.
Oh, I love that movie. Now I see it in a whole new light.
Right.
It's a perfect example of how social engineering can be used for deception.
It's a good reminder that we shouldn't automatically trust someone.
Yeah.
Just because they look the part or act confidently.
Right.
Always verify their credentials and trust your instincts if something feels off.
This is all incredibly insightful.
It is.
It's making me realize how vulnerable we are to these subtle forms of manipulation.
Right.
But knowing about them is half the battle, right?
Exactly. By understanding these tactics, we can be more critical of the information we're given and the people we interact with.
So we've talked about social engineering, which is all about manipulation and deception.
Right.
Let's shift gears a bit and delve into something even more intriguing.
What's that?
Lie detection.
Ah, yes. The art of spotting those subtle cues that reveal when someone isn't being entirely truthful.
I've always been fascinated by this.
Me too.
Are there any, foolproof methods for catching someone in a lie?
Well, Hanson, drawing from his CIA experience, he debunks the myth of the single telltale sign.
Okay.
So it's not about looking for someone to sweat or avoid eye contact.
Right.
Instead, it's about recognizing clusters of behaviors that deviate from their baseline.
So before we can even start analyzing for deception, we need to establish what's normal for that person.
Exactly. Hanson talks about making someone comfortable.
Okay.
Asking simple questions, observing their natural responses. This helps create a baseline for their typical behavior.
Right.
Then you look for any significant deviations from that baseline when discussing more sensitive topics.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's like having a reference point to compare against.
Right.
But what are some of those behavioral changes we should be looking for?
Well, he highlights changes in breathing, voice pitch, eye contact, even fidgeting.
Yeah.
But remember, a single sign doesn't necessarily indicate a lie.
Okay.
It's about looking for a combination of these behaviors.
Right.
Especially if they're accompanied by inconsistencies in their story or a reluctance to provide details.
This is making me want to pay closer attention to everyone I talk to.
I know, right?
It's amazing how much we can learn from nonverbal communication.
It's a fascinating field.
Yeah.
And while we may not be able to become human lie detectors overnight, simply being aware of these cues can make us more discerning in our interactions.
So we've covered social engineering and lie detection.
Right.
Both dealing with the human element of security. But what about the ultimate act of disappearing?
Ooh, disappearing.
Is it really possible to vanish off the grid in today's digital age?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is.
Hanson dedicates a significant portion of his book to this topic.
Does he?
Acknowledging that it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
But not entirely impossible.
I imagine it's a lot more complex than just changing your name and moving to a new city.
You're absolutely right. Hanson outlines a 3-step process.
A 3-step process.
Severing ties.
Okay.
Establishing a new identity. And mastering the art of blending.
Okay.
Each step is a monumental undertaking.
Let's break that down.
Okay.
What does severing ties really entail?
It's about completely disconnecting from your former life. No more contacting friends or family.
Wow.
Abandoning social media.
Yeah.
And even ditching any personal belongings that could link you to your past.
Wow. That sounds incredibly difficult.
It is.
Both logistically and emotionally.
For sure. And what about creating a new identity?
Yeah. What does that involve?
It's not just about choosing a new name.
Okay.
It's about crafting a completely new persona with a believable backstory.
Right.
You'd need to obtain new documents, which is incredibly risky.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And avoid anything that requires government-issued identification.
So no more flying, driving,
Right.
or even opening a bank account.
Pretty much.
It sounds almost impossible to function in society.
It is challenging.
Without leaving a trace.
It is. And then there's the final step, blending in.
Blending in.
You'd have to avoid surveillance. Keep a low profile.
Yeah.
And basically become a ghost.
This is starting to sound less like a spy thriller and more like a witness protection program manual.
Right.
But it begs the question, just how hard is it to stay hidden if you really need to?
Well, Hanson introduces us to the world of skip tracers.
Skip tracers.
These are people whose job it is to find those who have disappeared.
So like bounty hunters.
Kind of.
But for missing persons.
In a way, yes, he tells the story of Michelle Gomez, this tiny but formidable skip tracer.
Wow.
Who uses a mix of technology
Okay.
and good old-fashioned detective work to track down people.
Wow.
And her success rate highlights just how challenging it is to disappear completely in our interconnected world.
This is all so fascinating.
It is.
But I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed by the sheer amount of information.
I get it.
What are the key takeaways from this deep dive? What should we as listeners really focus on?
Well, I think the most important message is that knowledge is power.
Okay.
You're now armed with a former CIA officer's playbook on personal safety.
It's like having a cheat sheet for life's unexpected challenges.
I like that.
But beyond the specific tips, this book really encourages a shift in mindset, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's about cultivating a proactive approach to safety, being more aware of our surroundings, and understanding the tactics people use to exploit vulnerabilities.
So it's not about becoming paranoid or living in fear,
Right.
but about being informed and empowered to make smarter choices.
Exactly. And by being more present and observant,
Yeah.
we can assess potential risks and take steps to mitigate them.
This deep dive has been incredibly eye-opening.
It has.
I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on personal safety.
Me too. And it's amazing how Hanson has taken these complex spy techniques and made them relevant to everyday life.
It's like a crash course in spycraft.
It is.
For the average person.
Right.
But even with all this knowledge,
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder, what are some of the most common mistakes people make
Oh, good question.
when it comes to personal safety? What are the blind spots we need to watch out for?
That's a great question, and one that we'll explore further in the next part of this deep dive.
Oh, really?
We'll delve into the psychology of victimization,
Okay.
examine those common security vulnerabilities, and discuss how to avoid those pitfalls.
Okay, this is getting really interesting. I can't wait to unpack those topics and learn even more about staying safe
Me too.
in a world that can sometimes feel unpredictable and dangerous.
It's all about empowering ourselves with knowledge, skills, and a healthy dose of awareness.
We'll be back shortly for the final part of this deep dive.
We will.
So stay tuned. Okay, so we're back, ready to wrap up our deep dive into spy secrets.
I'm ready.
We've uncovered so much.
We have.
But I'm really curious about this psychology of victimization thing. Why do some people seem to be like magnets for trouble,
Right.
while others just consistently avoid dangerous situations?
Well, Hanson argues it's not just random chance. Criminals often choose their targets based on perceived vulnerabilities. They're looking for people who appear distracted, unaware, or easy to intimidate.
So, like, if you look like you're not paying attention.
Exactly. And remember how we talked about projecting an aura of confidence?
Right.
That plays a huge role in deterring potential threats.
So it's not about being aggressive.
No.
But more about sending a signal that you're alert and not someone to be messed with.
Exactly. It all circles back to those Cooper color codes, maintaining that state of relaxed awareness.
Right.
Condition yellow.
But it goes beyond just physical demeanor.
It does.
Hanson also dives into psychological vulnerabilities that criminals might exploit.
Yeah. You know, I've always wondered about those Good Samaritan scams.
Oh, yeah.
Where people prey on others' kindness.
Right. Like, is that what you're talking about?
That's a perfect example.
Okay.
Hanson says criminals often leverage our natural inclination to be polite, helpful, trusting, so they might create a scenario that triggers our sense of obligation or guilt.
I see.
Making us more likely to comply with their demands.
It's disturbing to think that our good intentions can be used against us.
It is.
Does this mean we should always be suspicious of anyone who asks for help?
No, Hanson isn't suggesting we become cold-hearted cynics.
Okay.
But he emphasizes the importance of trusting our intuition. If a situation or a person raises red flags, it's okay to politely decline to help or remove yourself from the situation.
Right.
Your safety comes first.
It's about finding that balance
Right.
between being a compassionate person
Yeah.
and recognizing when someone might be trying to take advantage of you.
You hit the nail on the head.
Okay, so we need to be aware of these psychological vulnerabilities. But what about physical security?
Right.
What are some common blind spots that we often overlook?
Well, Hanson really stresses securing those easily forgotten entry points in our homes.
Oh,
garages, side doors, basement windows. And he's a big advocate for reinforcing doors with solid core construction and heavy-duty locks.
And I remember he mentioned that those quick-set locks are a big no-no.
Definitely. Apparently, they're easy to pick.
Oh, really?
Which makes them a weak link in your home's security.
So what does he recommend?
He recommends upgrading to higher quality brands.
Okay.
Like Schlag or Medeco.
Okay, I'm adding new locks to my to-do list.
Good idea.
What about security systems? Are they worth the investment?
Well, Hanson acknowledges they can be an effective deterrent, but only if they're properly installed.
Right.
And most importantly, used consistently.
Yeah, I can see how people might get complacent.
Right.
And forget to arm the system.
Or
leave a window open.
Exactly. It defeats the whole purpose.
It does.
So he emphasizes having a system that covers all entry points.
Okay.
And making it a habit to arm it whenever you leave, even if it's just for a short trip.
I've also always wondered about those security company signs.
Oh, yeah.
You see in people's yards. Do they actually make a difference?
Hanson believes they can act as a psychological deterrent.
Okay.
Seeing that sign might make a would-be burglar think twice.
Yeah.
But he cautions against relying solely on them.
Right.
A determined criminal might see it as a bluff.
I see.
Especially if they spot other vulnerabilities.
So it's all about layers of security.
Exactly.
Strong physical barriers. A reliable alarm system.
Yeah.
And most importantly, a proactive mindset.
You got it. And that proactive approach extends beyond our homes or vehicles.
Okay.
And even our online presence.
Right. This is making me think about those times I've been distracted in a parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
Fumbling with bags, not paying attention. It's like a prime opportunity for someone to catch you off guard.
You're right. Hanson reminds us to be just as vigilant when we're out and about.
Okay.
Always lock your car doors. Park in well-lit areas.
Yeah.
And be aware of your surroundings, especially when you're alone.
It's like having that condition yellow awareness extend to all aspects of our lives.
Exactly. And that includes being mindful of our digital footprint.
Right.
We've all heard about online scams and identity theft.
Yeah.
Being cautious about what information we share online is crucial to protecting ourselves.
Well, this deep dive has been an incredible journey.
It has been.
It's amazing how these seemingly complex spy techniques can be applied to everyday situations to enhance our safety and security.
It is amazing.
I feel like I've gained a whole new arsenal of strategies
I do too.
to protect myself and my loved ones.
You know what I find most empowering about Hanson's approach?
What's that?
He emphasizes personal responsibility. He doesn't just tell us to be afraid.
Right.
He gives us the tools and knowledge to take control of our safety.
It's not about living in a constant state of fear,
Right.
but about being empowered to make informed choices and take proactive steps to mitigate risks.
Well said. And remember, personal safety is an ongoing process.
It's about constantly learning, adapting, and staying one step ahead of potential threats.
This has been a truly eye-opening experience.
It has.
I feel like I've leveled up my awareness and preparedness.
Me too.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of spy secrets.
It's been my pleasure.
To all our listeners out there, remember, knowledge is power.
It is.
And now you have the power to protect yourselves and those you care about.
Absolutely.
Stay safe. Stay aware.
Stay vigilant.
And until next time, may all your deep dives be insightful and empowering.
See you next time.